20 to 30-year-old, you're offered the chance to live rent-free in a retirement or nursing home with the caveat that you must make an effort to spend at least a few hours a day with the other residents sharing meals, hanging out, etc. Would you take this opportunity, and why or why not? Story 1. I actually did this in my mid-20s. I was a chef by trade at the time. I got the head chef gig at a community, but it was 2 hours from home. They told me there was one open in my town, but it didn't work out that way. It was great money, and I was newly married. To sweeten the deal and not lose me, they offered me a furnished room in the building, and it was only Monday through Thursday. Some of the best times of my 20s were had there. We bowling every night, big dinners, movie nights, the whole 9 yards. I enjoyed it immensely and was almost sad when the opening became available in my hometown. I never edit these and usually thank people individually if I get awards. Not possible now. So, thanks everyone, I appreciate you. Story 2. As long as I was in a section with mentally sound people, being around people battling dementia and Alzheimer's would be too much for me to deal with. Story 3. No, I wouldn't. My job can be fairly demanding, and I like my free time for working on my hobbies or relaxing. I'm a bit of an introvert, and I honestly don't have much in common with the elderly. Not to mention, a room in a nursing home isn't the sort of place I want to live either, regardless of whether or not it's free. Not only is my lifestyle not exactly compatible with the setting, but I'm afraid it might bother the other residents. I got nothing against old people. I just don't want to live in a community of nothing but old people. Story 4. Love the people saying they can. Guess you have never been in a nursing home. All the death and sickness always around. The poor people with dementia or Alzheimer's and the behaviors that come with it. Not a chance would anyone want to live that long there by their choice. Story 5. Homes are full of old ladies who have decades of experience with crafts. So live in knitting support. Yes, you'd have to have the windows open all the time to keep the care home smell at bay, though. ITT, people who don't know what life in a retirement home is like. Story 6. What's a few? If we assume that's 3 hours a day, every day, that's about 90 hours a month. Rent for a one-bedroom where I am is about 1 month, rounding $11 an hour, less than minimum wage. Not to mention that nursing home rooms are often vastly smaller than even a studio apartment and often don't have kitchens. May or may not allow pets. Probably not. Story 7. The summer before college, I worked in a nursing home under the table for 2 weeks as they had their security system revamped. My job was to make sure only people with employee cards got buzzed in and none of the residents got out of the blue door that led to the dementia ward. The gig paid well enough, but FML, it didn't pay nearly enough for the nurses I saw they had to deal with. I had some good memories at least, especially of a blind veteran that would always stop by at the same time every day to chat. He loved telling old war stories, and I enjoyed hearing them. He was good at telling them. But the dementia ward would ruin that every night. So many of them screaming they had been kidnapped or that they didn't know where they were. I remember one had gotten out, kind of little old lady in her pajamas. I found her on the side of the road, trying to hitchhike to the mall. She was so determined to go, I had to lie to her and say I was delivering a package before I could take her, so I could get her back to the home and tell the nurses. Story 8. Carer here that works in a nursing home for people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and severe behavioral problems. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I love working there, but living there would finish even the toughest person off. Story 9. Probably not. Unless the only other option is homelessness given the living costs in my area. I'm an introvert who needs alone time every day and has worked in a nursing home before. Story 10. ID rather die. I volunteered in a nursing home before, and I absolutely hated it. I have no interest in trying to make conversation with elderly patients. Story 11. On one hand, that seems like a great deal and a good time to spend a few hours with these fine folks. But on the other hand, I'm not sure I could handle all the loss when my new friends pass away. Story 12. No way. I'm in a rehabilitation center right now. That is pretty much the same thing, and I hated therapy. It's cool though. I want to cook my own food, I want to work, and I need my freedom. Story 13. Nope. 20 to 30 are the best years of your life. I would rather work full-time, pay rent, and have absolute freedom to make memories the same way those old people go to when they were that age. No-brainer question. Story 14. Absolutely. At any family function, you'll always find me drinking with the oldest people there. I love hearing old stories from people that have lived amazing lives. Story 15. What people ITT think nursing homes are like cute grannies and grandpas playing bingo and dancing to old tunes. What they're actually like people falling and shitting themselves and physically attacking you with old man strength. Because of their dementia, no, the cost of rent is worth living in peace and quiet. Story 16. I think I would end up like Cameron in Modern Family. While at a retirement home, Cameron makes friends with the old ladies. One by one, finding out each of the old ladies he's playing mahjong with is cheating or stealing cookies. I would just be the troublemaker, spreading gossip and whatnot. Story 17, currently living with one elderly relative who has been experiencing increasingly severe dementia for the past 5 years. I would say no, absolutely not. He is depressed because there is nothing to remember and nothing to look forward to. He has not been able to articulate his needs for at least 3 years. He gets angry when asked to put on pants, poops himself regularly, and gets angry about that too. Sometimes he tries to hit housemates. Sometimes he lifts up my skirt because he believes I'm hiding something. He was living independently and driving before moving in with the family. He was a great man and still tries to be polite to others when he isn't afraid of shamed. Cognitive decline takes away more and more of a person until there's not much left. Early dementia can damage a person's ability to feel enjoyment by physically damaging their brain. It takes serious mental effort to be able to respond with understanding and compassion every day with no end in sight. Story 18, no. While I have volunteered and done entertainment at retirement nursing homes, I wouldn't want to live there. While it's nice to talk to the people living there and hear their stories, it's also as depressing as it is insightful. These people have seen so much death and lost so many people compared to 20 to 30-year-old that a lot of them treat it as normal to bring up in a conversation. Another aspect is the high death rate. The people in retirement nursing homes aren't young anymore, and in most cases also very ill. Then there's dementia. Seeing people slowly lose their identity is an extremely harrowing experience. And having to see this over and over and over again every single day sounds like an absolute nightmare. Story 19, that depends. Is the nursing home a for-profit one in Ontario, Canada? If that's the case, hard pass. It'd be too sad watching all those residents receiving substandard care while the home lied about it. Story 20, you'd probably get some pretty great stories, and it would certainly improve their lives, but it's definitely not worth it for me. Dedicating a few HRS of my day to anything is a tough ask, regardless of what that is. Story 21, no. I hate old people, and I desperately need this kind of money, but I still take a hard pass. Yeah, I'm a 21-year-old student, and I live in a bedroom in a Ronald McDonald house as the night watch. I should be able to be called awake by guests if there is an emergency during the night and assist them. And that's it. The thing is, something like that has barely happened, if at all, in previous years. So I live rent-free while I can use all the facilities present in this house. No, don't waste your 20s unless this is a life calling of yours. Story 22, absolutely. Just think of the wealth of wisdom and life advice you would have the benefit of when your life is just starting out. BRB, calling the grandparents. 3. Story 23, as someone who works in a care home, I can tell you the elderly are great to be around. They can give you fantastic life advice and entertain you with stories from a time that you can only experience through their recollection. Working with the elderly has been a net positive for me, as they're always up for a good chat or a quick in the canteen. Story 24, no. A few hours a day is a lot of time. When you're working, it not only gives you income, it gives career experience, which is so important when you're young. I also think living in a retirement or nursing community would feel very awkward to me. As someone getting old myself, the idea of some young person striking up a conversation with me because they have to for their housing makes me uneasy. Story 25, no. That's an important point in your life for psychological growth and exploration. Living in such an environment is going to forever change how you see the world. It will always be through the lens of the inevitable death and suffering you will witness daily. This isn't a good or bad thing. It's just a very strong thing. I wouldn't want any one thing influencing me so dramatically. Story 26, I am 32 years old and disabled. In 2014, I lived in a rest home for 6 weeks. When my care agency pulled out of the contract to provide my care, I never ever want to end up in one again. I saw neglect, elderly with mental health issues no one was dealing with. Actually, a lot of mental health issues, and everyone just said, oh, they're old ack. One lady had OCD and would not leave her chair all day because she was afraid of everything having germs. No one cared. Had to deal with angry, mean staff who took any criticism very harsh. I did not feel I had proper privacy. There were also a few old men with urges who had no idea how to manage them too. It was a big issue they were struggling with. Then there were the people dying around you. In those 6 weeks, about 4 people died. Then a few days later, someone else was in their room. It is not a place I would ever go willingly to. Going back is one of my fears. You need to be a certain type of person to handle it. So many sad people, so many lost people, and so many people who would cry because their family would not visit. The visitors only saw the happy parts because when they came, the elderly were happy. But I saw all the horrible parts. I still cry about my time there. Story 27, I love that so much. And so will my boyfriend. We could live with the old people and have great chats with them, and would defo love it. Story 28. I live in a situation that is roughly similar to what is described, and I love it. I am late 20s male living with a woman in her late 60s. She is a 3-time cancer survivor and ran a couple of larger small-town business over the years, but has since scaled back to one multi-acre property. She has a house, a workshop office, and a handful of outbuildings for utilities and storage. You cannot see any of her land from a road. She is older but still vital and full of life. One of the most active people I know. She is always busy and has something on the go. Her battles with multiple cancers over the years have left her battle-scared, missing part of her lungs, and her bone density is low. I live with her to keep her company, help share the cooking, cleaning, and to help around the home property. I pay a small rent in the summer. In the winter, I live rent-free as long as I shovel snow off the paths and roof. Winter is remote and lonely here. It takes a certain person to live through it alone. I have my own bathroom, bedroom, and small office room, the most space I've ever had entirely to myself. She has become one of my best friends. We are very different people, but I respect everything she has been through. She is a great conversationalist and avid reader and enjoys conversations about almost everything. I've learned a lot from her. She is a way better housemate than most of the people I live with in university. Older people can be super awesome. People of many different ages have lots to offer one another. You just have to be open to the opportunity. Story 29. No. I've been to plenty of nursing homes as a volunteer, and most of them have awful living conditions. Nursing home and retirement home are different gigs. Story 30. I actually did that. Lived rent-free, but had to work one shift per week, usually on the weekend to cover for it. It wasn't a retirement home, but a huge house for people with disabilities. Loved every second of it, and only moved out when I began studying in another city. I still visit them, and will forever cherish the time spent and experiences I made there. Story 31. As someone with a long career in senior care and different levels of senior care facilities, this thread is pretty upsetting. I think many of you would benefit greatly volunteering with your local centers. Be they independent or assisted, the elderly are not a monolith that lose their personality. They're vibrant, wise individuals with interesting lives and perspectives, and many desperately need love and attention because of the way society casts them aside. Story 32. For years, I have been saying that preschool should be mainly in a retirement home. Just imagine how happy the kids would be to around a ton of grandparents who want nothing but to be around them. And just think of all the people in the home who would love to spend their mornings with a bunch of kids. I imagine it would work out in both ways in terms of immunity boost as well. I could see this working out quite well for all parties involved. Story 33. Oh yes, the stuff they teach you, sure, some of it is outdated, but some stuff still applies. I came from a working poor family who never went to college, so when I was in high school, I was on my own and trying to navigate colleges, what accreditation meant, what the significance of retention was, etc. I started attending a Unitarian Universalist fellowship, which was mostly comprised of retired professors. Didn't know when I started showing up. At the time, I was the youngest member they've ever had, so they were super excited to give me every resource they had. One elderly couple would bring me essays, classical books, every week. Gave me a huge advantage. Hells yeah. All my grandparents and a great aunt required lots of family care in nursing homes over an 18-year period. It was really cool getting to be with them and getting to know them as friends and not just weird old adults like getting tacos and sneaking cigarettes and wine-type fun. I miss my family dearly and will happily acquire any surrogate grandparents. Story 34. That's a wonderful idea. Most older folks I met enjoy being around young people and talking to them. And I love old people games like cribbage, hearts, spades, whist, etc. Story 35. I think the Netherlands tried this with students, rent-free, and in exchange they'd bring 30 hours a month with the elderly, go and get coffee, walks, etc. Story 36. No, young people have to be in the world outside. If you live only with old people, you're going to adopt their behavior. And his behavior is about who lived his life already. In your 20s, you don't want some place to rest until the life over. You want a living. Sorry for my English. Story 37. I worked in a nursing home in my 20s. That were some of the most fascinating people I've ever met. Nurses who worked before antibiotics, old moonshiners talking about outrunning the cops. People who survived the Depression. Not all old people are great, are young or old. However, I heard more great stories and really enjoyed the people I met. Story 38. Absolutely not. I get too attached to personalities too easily, and the death that surrounds nursing homes would be too much to handle. I'd rather take my overpriced, not worth it apartment in New York over that. Story 39. Yes, old people are the best regardless of who they are. Racist elder hilarious. Angry, bitter elder hilarious. So many stories too. That's my dream. Yes, I would. They have awesome stories to tell, and occasionally they need a friend. Plus, just think of all relief their children would feel knowing that someone is rooming with their mom, dad, and they can call them if their parents don't answer. Plus, they can teach all sorts of life skills needed, like how to wear a tie, sew a button, baking, cooking. ID do it. Story 40, as much as ID love to, I don't think I can handle bonding with some residents or short on time. Becoming strangers with someone hurts. Losing someone who you wish you could have spent more time with hurts even more, at least for me. Story 41 HM, it's free living and I like hanging out with old people, but nursing homes do smell, and they're notorious for their lack of care. Honestly, I don't know, I could hang out with the residents for a bit every day. We could eat meals, watch TV, play board and card games. That's not the issue. I want to end up taking care of them, and they don't want that. Either I think I might be more susceptible to illness and disease in a home. I'm a quiet person, so I wouldn't be a bother there. Who knows? Maybe they try to set me up with their single son or grandson. Story 42, we have had pre-pandemic a program like this here in my town. University music students were given free room and board at local nursing homes, and in exchange, they provided musical performances 10 to 12 hours weekly. Many students developed surrogate grandparent relationships in the program. It was a very well-received and sought-after arrangement. Story 43, retired people don't deserve that kind of bullshit from me. Patients and I wouldn't. Old people smell terrible and are often terrible company. A lot of them are bigots too. I volunteered at nursing homes when I was in grade school through 4-H. I wouldn't want to live there or with those people. Besides, I managed my finances just fine as a young man while paying for my own room and board, and I had great roommates and made a lot of awesome memories. I absolutely wouldn't trade it for anything. Story 44, absolutely. I actually watched a documentary about a young man who was part of a program like this, and he shared an apartment with one of the residents. They both loved it, and it seems brilliant to me. Story 45, they piloted this in the Netherlands, I think. Students get free accommodation with a requirement to spend a couple of hours a day with residents. As far as I know, it works well. Netherlands has some top-notch ideas with integrated teams for local health needs, etc., very cost-effective. Story 46, I started working at a nursing home last year during initial COVID shutdown. I'm literally only still there because I feel I love with those OL timers. And in case the world shuts down again, and I can't work at my real job, my 1 day a week is usually filled with smiles and giant hugs from my favorite 102-year-old. Story 47, reading through the comments, has made me realize that they should definitely start putting nursing homes on college campuses. Then put student rooms in it specifically for people who'll be working in that type of environment one day, CNAs, social workers, nursing students, etc., and allow the students to live there at a reduced rate in exchange for quality time. Story 48, yes, I would. And there are retirement homes that actually do just this. There's several in the Netherlands, the US, and in England. There's a Norwegian television series based on such a project, in fact, sadly started right before the pandemic hit. Story 49, last retirement home I visited had shared meals, and they played bridge. I could get 2 hours a day out of just meals, and then play some bridge or cribbage with grandmasters afterwards. Sign me the up. Plus, how many of the old ladies will call me sweet? All of them. Story 50, if I were to do that, I'd definitely make sure there were certain rules set in place, like I'll set aside time to spend with seniors from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. No banging on my door past a certain time, and no enter in my apartment. I'd like to help people, but without these or similar rules in place, I could see myself losing it very quickly. Story 51, yeah, I would. Rent mortgage is expensive, so give that up to live rent-free and hang out with old people. Sign me up. Old people have great stories, good connections, fun drugs. Plus, if me keeping them company and staving off loneliness and despair of old age, and maybe remind someone that people do care, then all the better. I would do it as a 50-year-old. What it means to them to have someone to talk is priceless. Story 52, yes. I'd have different people to talk to at dinner, which was made for me. I lived in an apartment W when I was 25, which I paid for, and regularly chatted with the retired group that sat in the lobby each day. To do the same and live for free, I'd have never left. Story 53, so zero rent, the chance to improve someone else's life just by being there, and the chance to hear all the interesting stories old folks have accumulated over their lives. Where do I sign up? 100 old people are cool, and we as a community should treat them better than we do. I'd happily play some piano for them, or entertain in some sort of way. Story 54, I will avail this opportunity because it will feel among them like a family. And living among family is not more than a blessing of Allah. Moreover, I will feel myself very lucky, as Allah Almighty is giving me a chance to serve those who are helpless. Story 55, assuming the other residents are older than me in their senior years, I would absolutely take it. My grandmother passed away when I was 9 years old from cancer. At that time, we lived in another country. We still do. She was the most loving human being you could ever meet, and it angers me I couldn't spend more time with her. I know the residents wouldn't replace my grandmother, but from my understanding, when you're in a nursing home, means less visits from family, not always, of course, so I would absolutely love to be there for them, get to know them, and enjoy the moment. Story 56. There's something like this in Germany, several IRC, where young people and older people live together. The young people have to do several things, but not a full-time job. Story 57. I worked in a nursing home before, and I would absolutely take this opportunity. The people there all have stories and can actually teach you so much about life. Everyone seems to forget that they have lived lives with crazy moments just like the rest of us. Those stories are amazing, and it absolutely makes their day, having someone who genuinely cares to interact with them. Story 58. If, and only if I wasn't depriving someone who needs it of a space despite the millennial rants, there's a lot to learn from older people. If they were all brought up with a silver spoon in their mouths, they wouldn't be living in a care home. They'd have a private nurse in their own home. Story 59. If you don't have a partner 100, take it. Save all the money you can while you stay at said establishment. You'll have more friends and money by the time you move out. I see no loss here. Take this opportunity. Story 60. Sure, visiting my grandparents was always fun. They had a pool table, movie room. Never having to decide what's for dinner would be a bonus, though sometimes the food can be bland. Story 61. The first house I bought needed a full renovation, and I planned on doing most of the work myself. I was 25, single, and wasn't paid much in my first job after graduating. My next-door neighbors were both retired tradesmen, and they took pity on me. They lent me tools and showed me how to do various jobs. The house needed a new damp course proof and kitchen, so I spent weeks eating dinner every night with the next-door neighbor. I provided the food, and we took turns at cooking. He taught me how to make proper gravy. We carried on sharing meals long after the kitchen was finished, as we enjoyed the arrangement. A while after, another next neighbor died. And so, I then started spending a couple of nights a week with his widow to keep her company on her request. We'd watch films together or just chat. I'd happily live rent-free in a retirement home and give up my time to listen to the residents. I love hearing life stories and different people's opinions on anything and everything. Story 62, the genealogist in me would love this. I'd set up a camera and interview as many as I could, ask them about their life, what kind of job they had, what were their parents and grandparents like, etc., etc., then I'd build out their family tree. Yup, I could seriously do that. Story 63. I actually did this. I worked with a World War II vet and have been living rent for free and bill-free for over 2 years while maintaining a job as a federal contractor. I'm 27 and have saved up almost enough money to buy a house in full. Story 64. When I was a CNA, 20-some years ago, there was a gentleman in the Alzheimer's unit. He was placed there because he kept writing million-plus-dollar checks to a farming equipment dealership and continuously wrote letters to the local paper about all of the injustices he lived through, i.e. his gloves were contaminated by plastic bags. I would happily spend forever with him. Story 65. I am 30 and have spent 1 month in a rehab nursing home after suffering from sepsis and kidney failure. No way, sorry. It was the most bleak and depressing thing I've ever been, though. Although this was just as COVID got really bad and loved ones cooped and even dropped things off, I can't imagine it being much better normally. Story 66. It depends. Are you allowed to leave during the day? Can you still have independence? Do you have to live there full-time without leaving, except for when your family picks you up? Like, what level of commitment are we talking about here? And let's speak food and medication administration. Are you eating the same meals and getting medical intervention as well? I need more info to decide. Oh yeah, can my boyfriend visit me here? Do I have overnight visit privileges? Am I my own room? Or do I have a roommate? Story 67. My grandma was in a home the last year of her life due to dementia. She was poor, so it was not a nice one, but the staff tried. My grandma was not very communicative, so I spent some of my visit talking to her roommate, a wheelchair-bound European lady in her 80s. When I first visited the place, I thought this lady also had dementia, but we got to talking, and I discovered that she was in fact very lucid. She felt her daughter put her in a home because she was in the way and told me she wished she had a gun to kill herself. Our talks always managed to cheer her up, though. Story 68. Yeah. Set me with the right group, and it will be like they're meeting a new person every day. They'll listen to the stories, play cribbage, politic on how Ike was the last great president, top it all off with a Matlock marathon. Story 69. I would like to spend time with other residents since I do not have parents. My family is absent. They ignore me, and I would like to live in a place where they give me what is necessary and incidentally accompany someone who needs it. Story 70. Yeah. My mom was a hairdresser in a retirement home, and I would go to work with her as a kid, and I loved talking to the residents. They always had great stories, and most of them were full of life. Even if they physically might not have been, at least mentally they were well. I would actually love to work in a home at this moment. I just don't know how to get into the business, making the kind of money I make right now. Really depends on the type of care home, the types of residents and their conditions, etc. I work as a nurse, and I'm fairly burnt out from it. But honestly, a few hours of socializing with people x7 20 hours per week. If your wage is 20 hour, you're basically paying $800 worth of your time per month. If you're cool with that, power to ya, but I'm tired. Can't do it anymore, lol. I literally only want to be alone these days. COVID has taught me one thing: I'm totally fine being totally alone. Story 71, no. I've already seen so much death in my 27 years. I couldn't form more bonds like that. Plus, it's so sad, and a lot of places trust their residents like. Story 72, no. If I'm not genuinely happy about being there, then what's the point? I'd rather be honest about how I feel and let people who genuinely cares about seniors take my place. I don't want to come across as, oh, I'm doing X because I'm getting Y and think of it as a job. Story 73, I work as a server in the dining hall. And it's amazing hearing their stories, from the working on movie sets to how one was jumping off a plane into Axis lines during D-Day and killing 30 to 40 Nazis. Number might be off, but whenever he tells it, he says it's between those numbers. I think out elder people are amazing with amazing stories to tell. Story 74, before I was married. Yes, I like community. Old people love company in general. They're not asking me to do anything I'm not qualified to do. And I wouldn't have to pay rent. Heck, I'm assuming the meals are free too. Wake up early, eat some breakfast with Lois and Stan, go to work, come back and play some chess with Harry. Sound good? Story 75, dude. At 35, I would totally do this. You become extended family. A few hours out of your day isn't an inconvenience if you're helping hanging out with others. Story 76, yes. I'm a musician. I love playing for older folks. Problem is I can't live off of just that. But if I didn't need to worry about housing costs and could entertain the old geezers, make him smile a bit and soak up some wisdom at the same time, perfect. Where do I sign up? TBH, I wouldn't mind. First, because in my city, it is stupidly impossible to find an apartment and rent is high. I even lived a month in a small garden house, so it wouldn't be the worst place to live for me. But even in general, I wouldn't mind hanging out with the elderly. They might have some cool stories to tell. You can learn a lot from them, and I would show them what the youth is up to one day. I might also get confronted with death a lot. This might be hard, but I think one needs to be reminded of death a lot to be mindful of life and the time one has. Story 77, no. I'm too disgusted by old people in such homes, and with such homes in general, as they strip all dignity from these people, which the reasons for my disgust with most old people may be an effect of this. So I wouldn't take the offer ever at all. Visiting someone for a few hours is already too much for my heightened sense of smell. The smell of old people, which is actually full diapers that these buildings reek off, is just unbearable for me. Story 78, in a heartbeat. I've always thought that it would be a great thing to keep someone older than me company for an afternoon and just sit and listen and learn. On the flip side, as I enter my old age, I hope if I ever get to be old enough where I am alone, I hope and wish that there will be someone there with me every now and then. I'm scared I'm going to be the rotting corpse the neighbors finally get tired of smelling. Story 79, if it were a high-quality nursing home, then yes, it means sickness is much less common. I can hear all of their stories before they pass and learn their wisdom, but would it hurt to be the only one not dying? Story 80, I frequently work in nursing homes and retirement homes, and I have to say, I would never want to end up in an institution like that. Give me a little piece of land out in the country and a shotgun, and it'll take care of the rest of my life. Story 81, COVID aside, because I don't want to risk spreading it to them, I would probably have to decline despite hating the concept of rent. I know from having seen my maternal grandmother's memory collapse due to dementia, she passed away in 2019, that it would be really tough on my mental health, as would a high death rate. Plus, I tend to like being very independent with managing my time. I do have some altruistic reasons for this, as I spend part of it on climate activism. So I'm not convinced it would really work, and much as it might be fun to try and teach them all how to play Smash Bros. Ultimate, and I don't mind doing jigsaw puzzles, those are fun. Story 82, no. I spent far too much time in nursing homes when my dad was in them. It was just an awful, miserable place. And if he didn't need around-the-clock care, or if I'd had the money to pay for 247 home care for him, I wouldn't have let him stay in one. I hope to be able to kill myself before I ever have to be placed in one. There's no way I would voluntarily stay in one, even if it was 100 all of my expenses paid. Story 83 depends on the quality of the home and the capacity of the residents. Homes in Canada right now are in bad shape. Especially Ontario, it would be impossible to have any sort of relaxing situation in most of them. If we're talking retirement community, where everyone still has their marbles and are being cared for properly. Probably, I hope old people like weed and DD. Story 84. As long as I'm not responsible for their care, taking care of accidents, physio, etc., then I see no downside. I had to care for both of my parents, and it was so painful to do. Old people are rad, though. Story 85. Yeah, I get free housing and friends that hang out with me, too. Win-win in my book. Yes, I like old people. They have some really interesting stories of a regular retirement home. No thanks, but I would move without hesitation into one of the Jimmy Buffett-owned planned communities in Florida. Catch me and my new boomer buddies cruising our golf carts over to Margaritaville for burgers and boat drinks. Story 86. Yeah, talking to someone is like exploring a new world, and our elders are a treasure trove of experiences and stories and knowledge that are just right there, and so many just get dumped off at nursing homes and left there without any other family interaction. That seems like a sweet deal, honestly. I'd take it just for the experience of hanging with the other residents. Some of them have kids that won't even come and visit. Why not try and be a light in their lives for the remaining years they have left?